Well, Russia has lowered flags to half-mast today as the country mourns the death of at least 133 people who were killed in an attack at a rock concert on Friday night. ISIS has claimed responsibility, but President Vladimir Putin has not publicly mentioned ISIS in connection with the attack. The US had 2 weeks earlier warned Moscow that it had intelligence of a possible terror attack on a music venue in Moscow. Washington also warned its citizens in Moscow to avoid public gatherings and music events. For more on the story, we're now joined by our correspondent in Moscow, Dasha Chernyshova. Dasha, thank you so much for your time. Well, today is, of course, the day that has been set aside for national mourning period. Just give us a sense of how the country is honoring those who have passed.
Well, indeed, it is a day of national mourning across the Russian Federation. At noon, there was the minute of silence at Russian museums as well as at the site where the attack took place. Interestingly, it is already on Saturday that people from all the corners of the Russian capital have started to come to Crocus City Hall, bringing flowers and toys in memory of the people whose lives have been claimed as a result of these acts of terrorism. They were also bringing toys because kids were among the dead, and we understand that there have been thousands of people willing to donate blood to those who have been injured in this attack, even though the Russian authorities and particularly the health authorities in Moscow have all said that there is enough blood for the victims. Nevertheless, people have been queuing for hours to donate their blood. We also have heard about some commercial projects in terms of how to help people who have injured in the Crocus City Hall attacks. For instance, mortgages and loans have been written off by many of the banks. The authorities have also said that they will be helping with the money. So all sorts of help is now being provided to the victims. But obviously, there are still many questions with regards to how that has happened. To this moment, the official death toll stands at 137. That's according to the Russian Investigative Committee. They also have said that they have managed to identify the bodies of 62. There are obviously the difficulties with identification of the bodies because of the nature of this act of terrorism. Just to remind you, there was the shooting and then the fire has engulfed the entire Crocus City Hall, or the area of 14,000 square meters. So they are holding genetic expertise, and later in the day they are expecting to give out the belongings of the people who were inside to their owners.
Now, many of the people in Russia, Dasha, are still, of course, dealing with the war in Ukraine with Russia. I mean, this must have, come at a complete shock for them, given the terrorist link, with this latest one. In terms of just the sentiment on the ground, what are ordinary citizens saying?
Well, if you talk to the people, they obviously have questions with regards to how that actually managed to take place, given the security measures that are typically in place at such concerts. And there are questions to the credibility of the videos of interrogation that have been released by the Russian state-owned media. And people do wonder how the suspects managed to escape and get so close to the border with Ukraine in Bryansk so quickly. So there are many questions on the part of the Russian society. It doesn't really necessarily need to be that they want to assign the blame with Ukraine. That was one of the first ideas that the Russian people had here, but that was never the conclusion ever made so far, neither by the investigators nor by the Russians themselves. There are also some versions that are circulating as to what could be resulting, what could be the consequence of this attack, because if the Ukrainian link is established, that could also mean that there will be the response from the Russian Federation. So many fear that probably another wave of mobilization could be taking place. So the expectation is that the investigators will be able to identify all the details as to what has happened. We haven't had any confirmation with regards to the participation of the Islamic State band in Russia in this attack, but many experts say that does not look like the Islamic State. It is not their tactics. So the investigators at the moment say they have brought the 4 suspects to the Russian capital. They will soon be behind the court in order to arrest them. And we understand that the weapons have been found at the place, at the scene of this act of terrorism. The investigators say they have managed to find 4 complexes of weapon ammunition. They have found the 28 magazines, 2 Kalashnikov guns that were used by the attackers to kill the civilians. So indeed, the investigation is ongoing. All the versions are circulating, but there are still too many questions and not many answers.
Absolutely, Dasha. Totally agree with you there. Thank you so much for your update, Dasha Chernyshova, coming to us live there from Moscow. Of course, Dasha, just reminding us again, of course, that number has now it's from 133, she says, to 137. So in other words, the death toll has indeed risen.